Hello everyone, this is Todd Blankenship with RocketStock.com, and today I'm going to show you how to use and customize the elements in our Sumi ink drop pack. This pack includes over 50 elements that you can use to add texture, effects, or transitions to your video projects. These 4K video elements were shot and designed to be used in After Effects, Premiere, and Final Cut. However, they should work in any nonlinear video editing software. Let's get started in Premiere. Okay, so here we are in Premiere, and what I've set up here is a sequence with one of our backgrounds from our canvas pack, and I wanted to show you how to create an alpha channel by duplicating these elements on top of itself. So here we go, we have this element right here, single ink drop 4, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag it right on top of our background layer here. And since these are 4K elements, I need to scale it to the 1080 sequence that we have here. So I'm going to right click and select scale to frame size, and there we go, much better. And then now let's click on the ink element itself here, and I'm going to hold down the Alt key and drag up one video layer. So now we have a duplicate on top of itself. And then now what we'll do is go over to our effects here, and let's search for a track matte key. And there it is. So let's just drag that onto our first ink drop layer here. And now let's go up to our effect controls. And here on the matte option, we need to set it to the video layer above the one that we want to cut out, which has our duplicate, which here it's video 3. So let's change that to video 3. And then now I'm going to change our matte alpha to matte luma. And see, there you go. Now it's cut it out, and you can see through where the black part was where the background is now. So if that's what you wanted to do, that would work. Or if you wanted to do the reverse, there's a handy dandy little reverse button. Now you have the black part of the ink cut out onto our background layer here. And also you'll see that there's a little bit perhaps too much transparency to this ink element right here, and that's really easy to fix and customize however you like. So if you want to add a little bit more contrast and a little bit less transparency to your ink element here, you could just take a RGB curves effect and drop it onto the top layer, and then just go to the master channel of your curves effect and just kind of punch it down a little bit, and you can just customize it however you like. And then let's say you wanted to change the color of the ink itself. There are a number of ways to do that in Premiere, but I think my favorite and perhaps the fastest is to just use a tint effect. So in the effects panel, just type in tint and just grab it and drag it onto the bottom ink layer here. And then you can just map the black to whatever color you like. So let's say we want it to be just kind of a dark red. And then you could take the higher end and just kind of make it a lighter red. Now you got some pretty cool looking red ink. And another thing that's cool is you can actually use that same technique in order to create a transition or have some cool stuff going on with your footage. So here I have this shot. It's a pretty shot of, flying over some mountains and some trees and stuff. So I want to have one of our ink elements actually reveal this shot. I'm going to go to the single ink drop folder again, and I'm going to drag this element down right here. So as you can see, again, it's 4K. So we're going to scale it down to frame size. And there you go. So what we want to do is have the black part reveal our shot that we have. So again, I'm going to take the track matte key and I'm going to drag it to our footage layer here. And then just like before, we're going to go to effect controls. And this time our ink layer is on V2. So we're going to change this to video 2. And again, we need to change it over to a matte luma. And we're going to do the reverse. And so there you go. Now you have this really cool transition where the ink reveals our shot. And so if you wanted to, what you could do is basically nest this whole sequence. So I'm going to select everything and select nest. And we'll just call this shot 1. And now this nest layer here has an alpha channel on it. So what I can do is I can actually drag another background underneath that. And so there you go. Now you have a really cool little look going here, and you can do a lot of cool stuff with that. Okay, so let's get started using these elements in Final Cut. So what I've done is I've dragged the elements in from the 2 ink drops folder, and I'm just going to drag one of them into a sequence. So I'm going to select this one right here and just drag it down. So what I'm going to do is have the ink reveal some footage. So what I've done is I've put some footage underneath our ink element here. And so what I'm going to do is, just to keep everything organized, I'm going to cut that off there. And what I want to have happen is for the black part of the ink to cut out the footage below it. So what I'm going to do is select the ink element here and go up to the compositing tab, and I'm going to select Silhouette Luma. And so there you go. Obviously, you can see there's a little bit of letterboxing on this footage layer here. I'm just going to scale that up, just like that. And also, you can see there's a little bit of transparency issues with the effect. And that's just going to happen because of the nature of how Silhouette Luma works. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a color correction effect here, and I'm going to drag it onto our ink layer, and I'm just going to go to our color correction effect here, and I'm just going to drop that down to where we lose that slightly opaque part of the footage there. So now the ink there is revealing our footage layer. And now, again, like before, we have the alpha channel on our footage layer here. So what we'll do now is we'll select both clips, and we'll right-click and select New Compound Clip. And so now we have one element that has the alpha channel of the ink layer embedded into it. And now what that means is we can actually take another footage layer and put it right underneath. And now what we have is kind of a interesting montage type transition. And I also wanted to show you how to create an alpha channel for the ink itself and change the color in Final Cut. So we're going to grab just this 2 ink drops element here, and I'm just going to drag it down onto a timeline. And here we have that same canvas pack background from before. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this element here, and I'm going to hold down the Alt key, drag up, and create a copy. And then let's make sure that you have the top layer selected and go up to the compositing tab again, and we're going to select Silhouette Luma. And so you can see right there the ink is cut out. And then what we'll do is we'll select both of those, and we'll right click and select New Compound Clip. And then now we can drag this on top of some existing footage. Now the ink itself has an alpha channel and it's cut out. And now we can change the color of the ink itself. So I'm going to select our ink layer here, and we're going to go to the colorize effect, and let's just drag it right on top. And now I'm going to go ahead and go to the remap black 2, and we'll just choose kind of a nice bright kind of blue, something like that. And then on the remap white 2, I'll do a similar color, just quite a bit brighter. And I'm going to go ahead and change the intensity all the way up. And so there you go. Now you have some blue ink. So that's how you can change the color and cut it out as well. Okay, now let's move on to After Effects. So I'm going to go ahead and just bring in the entire Sumi pack into After Effects here. And so here we go. We have it all in here. And I'm going to go ahead and just start kind of pulling in certain elements. So I'm going to go into the murky folder here. I'm just going to select a part of it and just drag it into a new comp. And so right now our comp is set for 4K. I'm going to go ahead and change that down to a HD comp, so 1920 by 1080. And again, like before, we need to select our element, and we're going to right click, and this time we're going to go to transform and select fit to comp. And I liked what we had before with that canvas background, so I'm going to go ahead and pull one of those in. But obviously you can use whatever background that you have, but I'm going to pull in from our canvas pack one of the paper backgrounds. And now in After Effects, in order to cut out this element, there's a couple really easy ways to do it. The first one is to select your ink element and just hit duplicate. And then on the lower element, we're going to change the track matte to Luma matte. Okay, and that's going to cut out all of the darker part of the ink. And we actually want to do the opposite. So I'm going to go for Luma matte inverted. So now the ink is just sitting on top, and we can change the color however we like. So to change the color of the ink, I'm going to go to Effect, Color Correction, Hue and Saturation, and then I'm going to select Colorize. So now we have a little bit of a red tint to it. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of keep messing with that till we get kind of maybe like a amber. And you can change the saturation and the lightness. That looks kind of cool. So now the murky ink element is on here. And I'm going to use this kind of as the background. So we have this shot of some windmills. It's going to be pretty cool. What I'm going to do is take one of the single ink drop elements here. And I think I'm going to use ink drop 2 from the single ink drop folder. And I'm just going to put that right on top. And now I'm going to go to the footage layer and change the track matte to Luma matte inverted again. And so there you go. Now as the ink layer appears, so does the footage. So I hope you enjoy these elements and get some good use out of them and build some really cool looks. Just play around. There's a lot of interesting ways to use them. And as always, if you have any questions or need any help, feel free to contact our support staff. We're always happy to help. And be sure to check out RocketStock.com for more packs in the future.